Good morning. It's morning for me. Hey, I'm Tom Jacobs. I'm on the web at tdjacobs.com and also healingsuicide.com. My main site is tdjacobs.com, and then Healing Suicide is a a, a site that'll help you understand more about soul and its journey and how to deal with difficult emotions that might lead us to contemplating suicide and how to work with them. But anyway, this video is going to contain some personal stuff. It's a Dear Diary kind of thing. As I thought about, I'm in the process of promoting and recruiting for the Pluto Healing Intensive webinar, which starts on August 20th and will run for approximately 3 months. It's not a webinar, it's not an intensive where you travel to where I am and then we have this immersive experience. It's an intensive as far as the depth we go to over several months with the closed group. Whoever signs up will have access to each other's readings, Pluto readings and processes. And I'm going to teach everything I know about how to move through difficult emotions, how to do conscious shadow work, how to face shadows. And so I thought about doing a series of videos to talk about this, and this is one of them. So this has personal info, but also it has some conversation about things that are unpleasant. So there's a little trigger warning for you. So you don't have to watch, but just realize I'm going through this conscious shadow work process, and I want you to have the opportunity to understand that everything can be healed when we figure out how to do it. And I'm teaching people how to do it. When I do a big event like this, I always go through my own process. And so that's what this is about. So this is a Dear Diary entry about Pluto stuff. My Pluto's in the 12th house in Libra, conjunct Venus, and squared Jupiter in Capricorn in the 3rd. No other major Ptolemaic aspects, but you can, well, it's sextile my stellium in Sagittarius in the 2nd and 3rd, Moon, Mercury, Neptune. You can see my chart at tdjacobs.com on the About Tom page. Anyway, so one of the things that's true about me that has been difficult for me for a long time is that I was born into and raised in a Jewish home. And I've never been big on ritual or ceremony. But when I was a kid, of course, we did all the rituals and ceremonies and did all the things. We were Reformed Jews. And I did all the things and I didn't have any problem with it. I loved the beautiful sanctuary. I had 2 rabbis over the course of my childhood, and I did go through bar mitzvah at 13 and then also confirmation at 16. So basically, from kindergarten up to 10th grade or the end of halfway of high school, I was involved in that. But what happened right after, and it was in the summer of after my sophomore year, after confirmation, we went to a summer service, which was a little more casual. And the rabbi would kind of tease you if you wore a tie and to be a little more casual during the summer. And I read what was in the prayer book for the first time. And I realized all previous to that, when you're supposed to read the meditation silently during this particular part of the service, I would enjoy the organ music and look at the beautiful stained windows and the colors, little Venus in the 12th, Mercury, Neptune, Moon. Anyway, and so I never really read what it said, and I read it and I was like kind of turned off, and I was like, man, I don't think that's what God wants us to be like subservient. Anyway, so I had a hard time going back. I didn't go back until my sister several years later got married and had a Jewish ceremony, and that was at a temple, at the temple there. So anyway, so in the intervening years, basically through the end of high school and through college, there was always this hesitancy a little bit to be comfortable with my Jewish background. And I thought for years, like in the latter part of that, 10, 15 years ago, I started thinking, man, I must have some past life where I just don't like Jews. And so I'm born into a Jewish family to get over it. And that could be part of it. I think that's a little teeny part of it. We sometimes have that where we have judgments about people, and then some other life, we're born into such a family because we need to overcome that, right? That's normal. I see that all the time in the work I do with people and other life readings. but it's more. And so it's, and even one of my best friends is Jewish, but when he would try to like have common ground with it, I would resist. So anyway, so recently this guy contacted me through an astrology group or about an astrology thing. And he noticed my chart on my site and where I was born, and he said, I'm from that area. I'm not far away. And we started talking. It turns out we grew up in the same community, in the same Jewish community, in the same temple. He's 4 years older than me, so we didn't overlap and didn't know each other. And I didn't know any kids outside my religious school class because we lived 45 minutes away and we would drive up there and then drive back. So I didn't have like community connections or other school connections or Hebrew school or anything, sports, music lessons. I didn't overlap with any of those kids there. But anyway, so we're talking and I was having good memories. And we were emailing back and forth and knew some of the same people, especially like the rabbis and the people who some of the people like the woman who ran the was a not the president, the principal of the religious school for my whole time there, and I believe his whole time too. Anyway, and that brought up, and so I was very comfortable, and that was weird. I was comfortable and feeling connected to this Jewish background, and I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" And then I had this realization of what it was, because in the conversation with him, and he knew the family of the principal of the religious school. In that conversation with him, I realized all through these years, I haven't been critical of her for the content, which I'm going to explain in a minute. But I haven't been critical of her, but I couldn't be okay. Wasn't comfortable. And when I was in college and later, I sometimes joke to friends, I must have, as a kid, seen every documentary about the Holocaust and every, picture, still, and film strip of the camps being liberated. And I had that kind of joke, and I realized that's what's going on. For me, I absorbed all that imagery when I was a kid. I'm not talking 4, 5, 6 years old, but I don't know, 9, 10, 11, 12 in religious school, periodically would watch a film or a video or whatever, and there'd be a talk, because Jewish people are committed to never forgetting, right? And even the principal's husband was a Holocaust survivor, but never talked about it, but we all knew it. So anyway, through the imagery, Pluto in the 12th house with Venus, sextile Neptune, Mercury, Moon. Through the imagery, I absorbed energy. Now, as an adult, I've learned that I also have sometimes, not all the time, the ability called psychometry, which is when you hand an object that belongs to one person to another and they get a read on that person. Like doing a mediumship thing at someone's house and somebody gives me the dead guy's keys. Whoa, and I was shocked. Like I've learned that I have that ability, but also looking at pictures of people. So, and especially dead people, pictures of dead people. Like if you should, and it just, there's even an Airbnb place I stayed in a couple of years ago for an overnight in California, and they had a nautical theme because they're on the coast, and they'd gone out of their way to decorate with all this stuff, including pictures of all these dead sailors. I don't know who's selling and buying these photos, but they had a room full of all this stuff, and I had to turn them all around because I can access information that way. Okay, so anyway, watching all these films with the survivors, the emaciated people, still in the prison garb or the tattered clothing of when they're liberated, like in the following days, right? I absorb that energy. So my relationship with Judaism, with having been born into a Jewish family, was wrapped up with the terror of feeling what they felt. So when I saw this, when I understood this, I started crying out that energy. And then I started to finally have some really positive memories that shocked me. like the first of the two rabbis, the older one who retired a couple years into my time there, there's a ceremony called consecration where you get your Hebrew name. And I haven't looked up and I don't remember what it might also be about, but it's like welcome you into the education process, part of the community, but you're a kid. I want to say I was 6 or 7 years old. What I remember is this unbelievably kind man who was giving me this special gesture. He did a, like a, you know, said a prayer, put his hands on your head and gives you your Hebrew name. And it's like this welcoming, and he was the kindest man I'd ever met at that point. I'm getting a little emotional now. But I couldn't even remember that because of all this stuff. So in that email dialogue with this guy who's 4 years older than me from the same community, I found myself being comfortable talking with him about it. And then it led to this opening up. And so then I'm sitting there for several days off and on, 40 minutes here, an hour there, bawling my eyes out, the grief, the pain, the suffering, the torture, the inhumane conditions, the loss, the separation from family that all those people went through, the fear of death, all of the abuse, all the stuff. And then I'm able to have more positive memories and be okay. So I just want, I was holding out those negative feelings that I absorbed from the media that it was shown to me in school. And I was holding on to it. And I realized it's not mine. It's not a past life of mine. I've been working on this for a few weeks. It's not mine, but I absorbed it. And then I made all the connections with psychometry and looking at pictures of dead people, pictures of anybody, and absorbing their energies. Like sometimes a client will email me a photo of their beloved animal who just passed away, or the 12-year-old child they're hiring me to do a reading for, and I can't look at them because I get too involved. I get too attached to their energies. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about this for a few minutes because that feeling is this Plutonian disempowerment. And think about the 12th house relates to the collective, intuitive, creative, mystical, spiritual, whatever, psychic, but also collected or connected to the collective unconscious. And so part of my wounding can come from, in Libra, the injustice, the tyranny, the violence of the Holocaust, stuff like this. So that disempowers me, and I'm learning how to overcome that and release that energy. And all things can be healed. I'm quite clear about that, but we have to look at the painful things sometimes. And the reasons we don't want to look at painful things, we don't want to do shadow work, is because we don't want to get lost in that. We don't know if we're strong enough to not get swallowed up by all of that. And as I think in retrospect, for the approximately last 40 years, that sense of tension in me, when somebody who knows I'm Jewish might joke around with me, and you know what I mean? Like, we might have that shared background and I'm tense. I didn't ever think that would go away. I didn't know what it was. I thought I just resisted it, or I thought I just didn't like it or something. And that's been hard. Actually, my sister, when she finished college, she married a guy who knew that he was on his way to become an Orthodox rabbi, and then they lived in this way. They lived a firm life or an Orthodox life. So for me, like visiting them, visiting her even, now it's just, I've just had all this tension, just had all this like resistance, and this is why. And now I understand why. So anyway, all things can be healed. And one of my jobs is that I've taken on kind of a campaign to educate you about positive Plutonian possibilities, but is to teach you how to do conscious shadow work. And that's what the Pluto Healing Intensive webinar is. So that starts on August 20th. I'm putting a link in the description to the video, and I hope you will join me. I don't have an official cap on how many people, but my original vision of how many people, I'm halfway there. So if you want to sign up, feel into it, sleep on it, but there will be a cap. There will be a cap, so it doesn't end up going more than 3 months. But read about it at the link on my site at tdjacobs.com. And I'm looking forward to helping you overcome the shadows of the past and moving into a more empowered future. Take care.